energy prices, oil prices in particular, have been flying of late. And of course, Woodside has rallied. But despite the fact that oil prices have really been surging, Woodside remains below its yearly high. It has done a lot of work off the lows, but it still hasn't taken out that swing high. As you know me, I love my technicals. I like to see stocks trading into clear air, and it just hasn't got there yet. And what we know fundamentally is that energy performs well in a high inflation environment. So right now we have that high inflation environment, but central banks and a lot of analysts have been talking about the fact that inflation will be transitory. And if we just work this through logically, think about prior to the pandemic, central banks for about a decade threw everything at trying to buy inflation. They literally were trying to buy inflation, and no matter what price they were willing to pay, could not buy that inflation. And inflation now has arrived because the gears of the economy had slowed down through the pandemic, and then all of a sudden we're coming out of the pandemic. There's this massive spike in demand, and those gears of the global economy are still gummed up a little bit. And that's what's seeing an acceleration in prices and a sharp acceleration in prices. That won't last. Logically, you'd think that won't last. And as I said, if you consider the period pre the pandemic, again, we couldn't buy inflation no matter how hard we tried. So if that environment does return, and we know that energy doesn't perform all that well in a relatively low inflation environment, then we might see energy prices normalise, and then that's not so good for the likes of Woodside and all the other oilers. So it's a combination of them. Despite all the fact that the oil prices have rallied so hard, they haven't been able to break higher, and that transitory inflation is still the base case. That this is my sell. Also, technically, it's starting to look as though it's rolling over a little bit. So maybe a bit of a controversial one, but the sell is Woodside today.